My name is Gertrude Bekermus. I lived in Brzeziny, Poland. Oh, doesn't matter. The Germans occupied Brzeziny in 1939. In the early 1940, they made a ghetto, and I lived there with my family. We were all working all kinds of things what the Germans told us to do. In 1942, they evacuated into ghetto lodge, also Poland. Over there, we had to work without food on the strict rules and hardly any food. In 1944, they evacuated Lodge Ghetto into concentration camp. At that time, they took away my father, my mother, one sister, and two brothers. We were in concentration camp till 1945, April the 14th. At that time, the Americans liberated us. We remained in Germany for a while. We looked for some relatives. Unfortunately, we could not find anybody. And in 1948, we came to the United States.
Name of the ghettos, state dates of stay, and the following questions give the relevant details for all the ghettos in which you were.
In my hometown, we were in the ghetto from early 40s till 1942.
Same town before the ghetto was set up? If not, in what places were you between September 1st, 1939 and the establishment of the first ghetto you were in?
We lived in this town before the ghetto, and that was my hometown.
When was the ghetto in your town set up?
In the early 40s.
Jewish actions were taken before the ghetto was established, including pogroms, state dates and details organized by the Germans or others or joint.
As long as I could remember, being in Poland, there was always a lot of anti-Semitism among the Polacks toward the Jews. When the Germans occupied, immediately they gave certain rules for the Jews. You were not allowed to walk all over. You were only allowed to walk certain places where they let you into a certain time. 1939.
Any of your family live in the ghetto with you?
My whole family. Mother, father, one more sister, and two brothers.
What work did you do in the ghetto?
The work that I did is uniforms for the German soldiers.
If you stayed in your own hometown, how did your townspeople view refugees from other places? Give details regarding refugees, numbers, places of origin, dates of arrival.
I was too little to remember when exactly the dates, and the people came in from other small towns. They came from all over with their families, if they had families in our town. They were received by the families very graciously, and we shared whatever we had with them till the Germans start to evacuate all our hometown. And everybody went there where the Germans specifically told us to go.
Allowed to leave the ghetto at first, and if so, for how long?
We were never allowed to leave the ghetto.
What was the approximate size of the ghetto? Were there one or more ghettos in the same town? Specify.
Approximately the size of our ghetto was small. there was no more than only one ghetto.
A wall, a wooden fence, a barbed wire fence, or perhaps no physical boundary.
The fence was a barbed wire, a high barbed wire.
The organization of the guard at the gates, hours of entry, pass systems, nature of the guard, were they Jewish, German, Polish, or other?
It was just closed off. No hours of entry, no hours. There were German guards outside of the ghetto around the barbed wire.
Any knowledge of what went on outside of Nazi territory? Were there radios, underground newspapers, or leaflets? Did you send or receive letters from abroad? Through whom and when?
I don't think so, but I really don't remember.
When did you know the truth about the extermination and about the gas chambers?
In 1942, on a Tuesday, the Germans called the mothers with very young children to come to a certain place, and they selected the children, and they took the children away from the mothers, and they said that the mothers could go home. My mother came home to the rest of the family, with my father and 5 children, and she looked around and she says, "What am I doing here? They took my baby away," and turned around with a cry and went back to her youngest son, which they both went away, and I assume immediately to the gas chamber. Now it first start to come to our mind that is at this extermination camp. After that, we were evacuated to the Logic Ghetto, and they took my father away in a different line, which we waved goodbye, and after a while, we went one way and my father went the other way. For a while, we got some mail, which I never taught with my father's right signature, which I never taught that this is my father, because we never seen him again. We came into the Logic Ghetto, 5 children, 4 girls and the youngest a brother. It took about 2 weeks. They again called the youngest a certain age to come to a certain place, and they took away my sister and my youngest brother, which I never seen again. We were in the Logic Ghetto, as I said, till 1944, and then we went to Auschwitz. In Auschwitz,
Do you have any personal or family plans to escape? If so, what were they?
where we were, there was no way of escaping, and we made up our mind, we'll see what's going to happen.
What did you eat in the ghetto at different times? What were the size of the rations, method of distribution, and who did the distribution?
There were no Germans in the ghetto. There were only Jews. The Jews were in the kitchen, in the factories, and in the all over. Whatever you got or you needed, you turned to Jews. The Jews gave us food, a soup, bread, and that's we tried with that to live through the day.
What was the size of the living space throughout this time? How many people in the apartment or room? What were the cooking and sanitary arrangements? Availability of coal or wood for heating?
We had one room. We were 6 people. The room was bunk beds, a stove, a pail of water, and we had some coals and a ration to cook.
What pre-war political parties were there? What was their relative strength, and who were the Jewish leaders in the town before 1939? What happened to them during the war?
I was too young to remember.
What was the date of arrival at the camp? From where and by what method of transportation?
From the Logic Ghetto, we were evacuated to Auschwitz without clothes, without anything. As we approached Auschwitz, the German either Gestapo or call them whatever you want, selected the people, younger one right and older one left, and they took everything away from us, and we remained nude, and they gave us the clothes that they wanted. Then they took us to the camps, and we stayed outside for a number of hours, and they selected again and again and again, and beating and talking and selecting. Finally, the night approached, and we were chased in the barracks without heat, without food, without anything. We remained in Auschwitz close to 2 weeks. After that, during the 2 weeks, we were twice called out again, and they wanted to make numbers, which that was in the middle or late 44. They wanted to make the numbers on our forehead. And every time they were ready to do it, something came up, what we didn't know at that time, and they called us in back in the barracks. We were close to 2 weeks in Auschwitz, then they took us to Bergen-Belsen. We were going by all kind of transportation with very, very little food, included 7 days walking barefooted without anything. A lot of girls, only women, a lot of girls fell and they never got up. We came to Bergen-Belsen, we stayed there on the floor for 10 days. From there, they took us again on transportation, all kind, to Salzwedel to work in an ammunition factory.
Alone with members of your family, what happened to them?
We arrived with 2 sisters, and we were all over together.
Was there a selection on arrival? Did you know what it meant?
There was plenty selections, and I knew what they meant.
Describe the location and size of the camp, its guard system. When was the camp set up?
Auschwitz was so big that I really cannot specifically say that big or smaller or larger, which it was a Birkenau and an Auschwitz, and that's all I remember. I really cannot describe Auschwitz because there was a Birkenau and there was an Auschwitz. One was worse than the other, and it was so tremendously that I really can't say too much about it. I know it was one big of a Holocaust. I cannot tell too much about the guard system because if nothing happened, you hardly saw them. If they needed you, they found you and gave you whatever it was necessary. They beat you or the food or for some reason. Otherwise, they were all out and having a good time.
What was the composition of the inmates? Numbers, how many? Ages, sex, Jews and non-Jews, towns or areas of origin?
Ages, the teenagers. Sexes, only female. Only Jews.
What did the work consist of?
Worked in Salzwedel in an ammunition factory. In Auschwitz we didn't do anything, just in and out and beating and in and out, every minute something else. Short torture.
Describe the food.
How can I describe the food in Auschwitz? After we were staying outside, in all the rules, in all the beatings, in all everything, they gave you a hot soup on a plate to eat it fast without a spoon.
Describe the daily routine.
Getting up in the morning in freezing weather, about 6 o'clock, barefooted, staying 4 in a row, naked, hungry, frozen, staying like that for about 2-3 hours every single day without being allowed to say a boo, without even touching the next person to keep a little bit warm, which I did it with my sister, and a couple came over and gave us a good beating.
Killed? How? When? By whom? Germans or non-Germans? Were there actions in the camp?
All the people that they selected immediately went left, and we never seen them again. I assume they went immediately to the gas chamber. In the barracks, they came in once in a while, and they thought that somebody stole a potato or a piece, anything what was just eatable, or even a piece of garbage, and they could beat you to death, which I did not see in front of me any dead persons or people, but I seen being tortured.
Were there attempts to escape?
I was too young to understand.
Was there an organized underground, planned resistance, contacts with the outside?
I was too young, I don't remember.
Were there any attempts at cultural activity?
We were kids, we didn't have anything.
Any children in the camp, hidden or open?
No.
What were the relations between the Jewish inmates? Was there antagonism between groups from the same town, between groups from different towns, between Polish and other Jews, between Jews and non-Jews? Please give details.
General among the inmates, we had a very good relationship. The only thing, we had no food, we were very frightened, and every one of us lived for themselves and tried to make the best that the day should pass by, because we did not know from one minute to the other what's going to happen. When we came into Auschwitz, the Hungarian Jews were there first. We felt that they were a little over us with power because they were there ahead of us.
You received help from fellow inmates. Please give details.
No.
You ill? How did you recover?
Lucky for me, I was with two sisters, and when one of us got ill, we shared anything and everything we had, the piece of bread or the piece of potato, we gave to the sick sister, and we shared everything. That's the way we got along, and we survived.
Was there medical attention of any kind, official or clandestine, by German or Jewish personnel?
There was an infirmary, and if you were just sick, none of us wanted to go into the infirmary, because we knew sooner or later they're going to send you away. There was very little medical help, and anybody tried to avoid as much as possible not to tell the Germans that one is sick.
Describe the clothing, the sanitary conditions.
How can I describe the clothing? I'll start with my own dress. I had a red long dress. One sleeve was navy and one sleeve was red, a different color red. With that was necessary for them, that's what they wanted. The next one had the navy dress, so she had one sleeve from me and one her own. On the left arm we had the Jewish star and a number, and we were always called by that number. There was no food, there was no water. Many times the little coffee that we got, we shared it among the three of us, and we washed our hair or washed out the piece of clothes that we had. The sanitary conditions were very bad. We had to go out in the yard, in the dark. Many times there was no water, many times there was nothing, no facilities whatsoever.
You or anyone else received mail officially? Parcels?
No.